This is LKruse, and this is my instructional design signature assignment. The skill that I'm going to be doing an instructional design for is crossing the street, which is a very crucial life skill. So, crossing the street, in some senses, you could call it a gateway skill. Being able to cross the street safely is a skill that allows for many other functional life skills. So, if you can cross the street safely, you can engage in different leisure activities such as going to the park or going to meet friends for dinner. You can also go to work via walking to work by crossing the street or walking to be able to take public transportation between locations. So that ability to cross the street safely allows many other life skills to be developed and taught. It is a skill, though, that does require 100% accuracy. It's one of those that is a literal matter of life and death based on accuracy. So, looking at kind of best teaching methods in order to get to that 100% accuracy, we're kind of combining some strategies from the Morningside Academy and how they break things down into acquisition, practice, and application using behavioral skills training methods, which involve modeling and prompting and feedback. And then for that prompting, really focusing on most to least prompting. And some of that research came from another study which was able to successfully teach individuals with developmental delays to cross the street with 100% accuracy. So looking at the Morningside Academy, there are phases of teaching. So in Johnson and Street's book, they describe those three phases. So initial acquisition. Initial acquisition is really where you're learning the how and the when, so getting that stimulus control. Instruction is going to include verifying, which is where you demonstrate, model, you prompt and lead them, and you kind of test to make sure that they can do the skill. And then randomizing. So if we're teaching just responding to the don't walk sign first, then responding to the walk sign, and then intermixing those. Pacing, so that way when they see the walk, they are able to go rather quickly and not linger for too long where it becomes not appropriate to walk anymore. And then they do individualization where you kind of ask it in a group and see if they can respond. That's not a piece that is specifically written into this design, but is definitely something that could be incorporated if you are implementing this with a number of students. The practice phase is time structured, goal oriented. This is going to be more within kind of the mock settings that we're doing, where it's okay, there's the cue is shown and they're able to go quickly. So getting that fluency building. And then application, they look at two different types really, so in a new context and then kind of a new combination. So application for this design will be somewhat in that mock or on streets that really there isn't traffic at the time. And then moving it into that real world application in streets where there is some traffic. Behavioral skills training has a lot of research behind it now, and its structure is very similar in some ways to that initial acquisition stage from Morningside. And it's been successfully used to teach other safety skills. So Gross, Miltenberger, et al. Have used it to teach gun safety to children, being able to, if they see a gun, know what to do and go tell an adult and go through that procedure. So behavioral skills training is something that has been used successfully to teach other life skills. It consists of 4 components. So first is just the instructions, so kind of reviewing what it is, and then modeling it, and then doing the role play, and then providing feedback. So we're going to take some components of this because it is beneficial to that, but we are going to do limited in some senses on some of the feedback because we don't necessarily want in the role play situations and in the real world situations them being able to practice with errors and then get feedback on those errors because that could cause injury. From prompting, so Batu et al. Developed a training procedure where they used that most to least prompting, and it did result in 100% accuracy for crossing the street in both maintenance and across maintenance and generalization checks. So most to least prompting is really critical for teaching those life skills that require that 100% accuracy. You're going to do total task training with that most to least prompting so that they get to correctly practice the skill every time. So the task analysis, this is pulled from the Batu et al. Study. And when they're crossing the street using pedestrian lights, so they stand and they wait for the red light, or we have kind of walk and don't walk cues, is on, and then they walk with the fast steps to the other side of the road when it's the green light or the walk sign is on, and then getting to the pavement on the other side. So those are kind of the task analysis, the skills that we would be monitoring throughout. So for this group, the population and the setting, it's the plan is designed for high school students with developmental disabilities. So generally they're going to be aged 14 to 21. There is some kind of required entry repertoire skills. So they do need to be able to distinguish between some common community signs. So they need to have shown that ability to, identify the women's restroom versus the men's, or, a McDonald's sign versus a Taco Bell sign. Those kind of functional, that they are able to learn those receptive ID skills, because that's going to be a component they need to do in order to successfully know when it's safe to cross the street. They also need to be able to follow basic directions. So if they're told stop, walk, things like that, they need to be able to follow those. Look. They need to be able to follow point. So if something is being gestured, and kind of be able to be point and guided. And then we're going to have that they're attending a high school program. So that way there's the staff to train to go with them. The settings that we're going to go through are kind of the classroom setting, just to work on that initial knowing when you see the sign, do you walk or do you not walk? Go into a mock setting, so ideally kind of set up in the gym, or I know near where I live, there's actually a park that's designed for people with special needs that has a mock city where they have working stoplights, something like that. And then going to a low or no traffic street, and then going just to a regular street. The instructional arrangement would be definitely one-on-one, just from the safety perspective. So given that 100% accuracy need, you would want to do this in a one-to-one. You could do multiple students at once, but each should have a staff member assigned to them, just from that safety perspective. Here's an example of kind of the 4 different stimuli. So 2 that are text-based and 2 that are image-based, since both will be encountered. So try and do at least program for common stimuli. Often the don't walk is in more of an orangey red, and the walk, at least here, is more in the white. So making sure that we have both text and graphic-based ones that they're learning to respond to. So learning to cross the street, they need to learn to identify those signs, as well as that kind of walking, looking different directions. So here's the general prompting hierarchy, and then error correction only to be done kind of within the classroom setting. So the prompting, the SD, is obviously going to be the sign. Initially, it's going to be a full verbal plus full physical. So are you ready to cross the street? The sign says, and then you're going to say walk or don't walk, whichever is appropriate. And then physical guidance to block walking, so putting an arm in front of the student, or to walk by putting one hand kind of on their back to prompt, and then one hand holding one of their hands to guide them to walk. Full verbal, then after that 100% accuracy, kind of 3 consecutive times what we're setting it at, then you kind of fade to the full verbal plus a partial physical. So are you ready to cross the street? And then the sign says, so still giving that full verbal. And then just physical guidance of kind of the hand on the back, hopefully, which to indicate when it's time to walk only. So when it's not time to walk, hopefully not needing the block anymore. Then fading the verbal as well, so just doing are you ready to cross the street, not specifying what the sign says. Doing the physical guidance, still that partial physical, fading it down to then the are you ready to cross the street, that verbal cue. And then hopefully being able to fade that out, or just seeing the sign is enough to elicit the correct response. So during that very initial kind of in the classroom, just do you take a step or do you not? Doing error correction if necessary. Ideally, we're doing as much errorless as possible, but if error correction is necessary, so if they start walking and they actually walk into your arm, remove the stimuli, represent the picture, immediately prompt that correct response. Do a quick, distractor task, a high five, clap your hands, something easy. Represent it again and see if you can reduce the prompt, then they'll respond accurately. After that, really just ensuring that errorless teaching is being used, just so we don't get into a situation where they are actually able to err. So kind of putting all those components together, how does this actually run? So the initial acquisition from the morning side phases is going to be in the classroom. Considering the behavioral skills training is much more that instruction. So can they receptively identify those walk signs versus the don't walk signs with 100% accuracy? So for at least those 4 stimuli. It's also noted at the bottom that a preference assessment should be done to kind of determine appropriate reinforcers, and whenever possible, they can be ones that are things that they could access if they cross the street. So, being able to cross the street and go into a Walgreens and get a snack, something like that. And then, of course, praise if that's identified as a reinforcer. So receptively, the objectives kind of within that initial acquisition are going to be receptively identifying the walk versus the don't walk signs, 100% accuracy, 3 sessions, but over at least 2 days, just to ensure that there isn't any kind of maintenance issues if they are able to do it throughout the day, plus then carry it over to the next day. And then when shown those signs, we'll walk or stand still respectively with that 100% accuracy, 3 sessions over 2 days. During this phase, most of these prompting is used and the error correction can be used initially if needed. So next, going into that practice phase, so now we're going to go into the mock setting, and then after they master that, go into the low or no traffic setting. This one, we can do some modeling, so where the staff that are working with the student can model, oh, I see the walk sign, okay, I'm going to look both ways, I'm going to walk across the street. If there's no cars and the sign says walk. So modeling that, having them role play it. Role play with feedback. There may be some feedback if there's errors in that mock one, if they start to walk when they shouldn't, or they misidentify the sign, or they don't look both ways, kind of catching them right away and giving that immediate feedback, and then going into that error list as much as possible. So the objective for this is in the mock setting or no traffic streets, they'll be able to walk only when the walk sign is eliminated, look both ways, and cross the other side with that 100% accuracy, 3 sessions over 2 days. And then a second objective is in that mock setting with no traffic, so kind of we need both the stimulus control for both of the directional signs. They'll stop when the stop hand is eliminated and wait until the walk sign is there. So not only will they walk when there's a walk sign, but basically they won't walk when it's the opposite sign. So kind of training both the SD and the S delta. Going into prompting, so continuing that most to least prompting and doing errorless teaching is really the focus within the practice and application. So within the application, that's when now they've shown they can do this 100%. Then we're going out to the street, still having that one-on-one person there initially, going through initially, still doing the full, kind of work them through the full prompt hierarchy, modeling, role play with feedback, and the feedback in this section is much more focused on if they needed prompts, reminding them that feedback. So really, it's crucial at this application stage to not let them err 100% of the time. Get in there, prompt, and then provide feedback on whenever you did have to prompt. So letting them know, okay, this time, I touched your back when it was time to walk. Let's see if next time you can walk when you see the walk sign instead. So the objectives are similar, except it's just the setting. So in the live setting, able to walk when the walk sign is eliminated, look both ways, cross the other side, 3 consecutive 2 days. And in a live setting, we'll stop when the stop hand is eliminated, wait until there's a walk sign with 100% accuracy. So once they've been able to do that, then you're just checking for kind of that maintenance and generalization. Are there places you can go that have different looking signs and they're not identical to the ones that you tested? Ideally, that's kind of a built-in, but trying kind of a variety of them, or at least going to places that are going to be crucial for them to be able to cross safely. So that is the instructional design poster. Here are the selected references, and thank you very much.